Greetings, friends. Martha Creek here. Presence and Potential by Martha Creek, available Amazon.com. And thank you for those of you that have purchased the book, and please send a review up. Chapter 2: Regulate Your Own Anxiety. Regulating your own anxiety starts with being able to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. You've heard that airplane announcement about what to do if the falling oxygen mask in the cabins, if the plane suddenly loses pressure, right? Before you can help any other person, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. Before you or I can help another person in any situation that evokes anxiety or causes anxiety to heighten, we've got to regulate our own anxiety first. That's why in emergency room walls, on the chart of actions first responders should do, step 1, quote, regulate your own pulse. Before we can help another human being or bring any kind of presence of mind, calm, or coherency to a situation, it's necessary for us to regulate our own anxiety, to presence ourselves, to pause. Regulating anxiety sounds easy, and yet it is one of the most difficult tools I've practiced throughout my life. After decades of practicing this, consciously practicing this, deep breathing, mantras, and a myriad of other techniques, it's still practice. And I'm still struck at how I am when I see mature, intelligent, highly functional people, including me at times, unable to regulate anxiety or unable to do this systematically or in a broader spectrum of experiences and situations. It's mind-blowing. I remember the first time I was able to do this. I was a young girl, and my uncle and I were in a farm accident. My uncle and I were riding on a wagon being pulled by a tractor. The tractor hit a tree, and my uncle was jarred off the wagon and was injured. Somehow I was able to stay calm in that situation. I got down off the wagon, situated him on the ground, and began directing my family, even though I was a child. You go get the car. You come over here and help me pick him up. Now we will carry him over to the end of the road so he can be driven to the hospital. I remember saying, go directly to the emergency room. Don't stop for anything. A calmness in me caused me to be able to think, to organize, and to strategize about what would be a series of sane, sensible action to get him off that farm and onto the road where he could be driven in a car to an emergency room. I reflect on that quite a bit and how that calmness was in me at a very early age. I also remember being at funerals where there was a great deal of emotion being expressed, wailing, praying, crying, shrieking. And somehow I had the capacity to hold space for people experiencing this deep grief in the processes of these intense losses. Some would say it was disassociation. Could be. I was able to keep myself calmer and to regulate my own emotions and feelings so I could be of support emotionally and spiritually for other people who were experienced and buried in this loss and grief. We all can learn to regulate our anxiety to some degree without denying our own feelings, disowning, suppressing, denying our own feelings and losses. We have been taught many common and profound practices to regulate anxiety, such as pausing before responding or pausing before proceeding. I'm quoted often as on the phrase of this practice, Martha Creek's 3 Ps. Pause, pray, and proceed. Or pause, presence myself, then proceed. Or pause, prepare, proceed. Find whatever 3 Ps you can find. Application, embodiment is the key, of course. This tool has served me well in every profession I've had, including human resources, ministry, coaching, counseling, family matters, and relationship matters. Pausing, preparing, then proceeding may serve you too. In regulating our own feelings, anxiety, and thoughts, we become informed, aligned, and connected to a greater source. This practice makes us more collaborative, innovative, thoughtful, truer listeners, and strong space holders for others. Think about this concept in terms of animals. Our behavior under stress closely mimics animal behavior. For example, a herd of cattle in a field surrounded by an electric fence. When one cow touches the fence, it gets shocked, it's startled, and starts to stampede. It's running to get away from the enemy, the electric fence. Without thinking, without any cause in reality, the entire herd may stampede due to the actions of this one cow. The others didn't experience the shock. They're simply in a reaction as if there is an imagined threat. We often do the same thing. Because of our own herd mentality, we also will herd in effect. How do we change this reaction? By taking a moment to pause and to become, in essence, a circuit breaker. When someone else is panicked, angry, or upset, we often run away from a situation without pausing to think, pausing to see if there's any real threat in the field. Is there an actual reason to be running or leaving a scene? Without this pause, we live from a regressed, more animalistic state. We're living and responding from the animalistic brain, the reptilian brain, the teeny little part of our brain that only has a limited repertoire of options: fight, flight, or freeze. In this example, we would be reacting from a flight mechanism. So the question is not, do I do this? Of course. I do it, you do it. We all do this. It's instinctual, hardwired, automatic behaviors. When it happens, it can even seem like we don't have control over it. It's such a knee-jerk reaction and such a patterned response that we feel unable to control ourselves at times. We take action without even knowing what we are doing or why. This is what we're dealing with here: a power of a reaction that is so innate, so instinctual, so automatic. So saying regulate my own anxiety is no little thing. To be able to build in a pause when we get triggered, when we get upset, affronted, afraid, panicked, terrorized, humiliated, embarrassed, any such emotion that arises. Our task is to create an automatic pause in the situation instead of the instinctual reaction. So, to practice, before we speak, pause. Before we defend, pause. Before we go to war with another person, pause. Before we go silent or withhold, whatever our patterned ways of beings are, we put a pause in there first. How can we get calmer? How do you get calmer? Take a deep breath. Count to 3 or 10. Remember, the person before us is a human being. The enemy in front of us may actually be someone we deeply care about. All the more reason to stay coherent and to be more present to what matters before I stampede or attack. Decide for yourself what are ways you can regulate your own anxiety. How can you be calm even when other people aren't? How can you be a calming influence in a herd mentality? When others would stampede or run over the other, how can you be the calm, less anxious presence in situations similar? Whatever the situations are in your life, your workplace, your family, your children, your spouse, or your closest relationships, what can you do? How can you be the circuit breaker for anxiety? Instead of joining in, commiserating, colluding, hurting with others, examine how you can be a circuit breaker instead. Imagine what it would be like if you could employ this tool of regulating your anxiety, what difference this would make in your life when you have some practice at this and it becomes more natural to be the calmest one in the room. As we continue through these 26 tools, use just one of these tools. Any one of these, you will find yourself in a better, able to respond, responsible position in any sticky situations. Implementing just one of these new skills in any now moment increases your ability to be present and makes you higher functioning, therefore greater potential. It changes the entire reality of a situation. It changes the whole scene. It changes your experience of your life. It changes relational dynamics and makes life a lot easier, maybe even happier. Blessings, friends. Uplifting your presence and potential. MarthaCreek.com to contact me. Blessings.